We're still talking about going to Yukon and getting a free, big, huge Walmart one that we just pulled out and just using that word.
Yeah.
That's better upstairs. Mayor, do you have your presentation ready?
Oh, you're serious?
She doesn't even flinch.
Katie was, she just nodded.
She knows me.
Should ask her if she has her mouth open too.
It's on the counter to be checked.
I never doubt Claire having her own.
Okay, I hereby call this meeting to order of the Willington Board of Education. It is March 12th, 2019, and it is 7:05 p.m. We always like to start our meetings off with present to speak, and since we have people in the audience, I'd like to invite you. If there's anything you'd like to say, you'll have an opportunity to also say at the end of the meeting. You're present to speak twice. If you do so, please limit your comments to 5 minutes, and not only give us your name, but also your address for the minutes. Okay, seeing no takers this time around, you might be less shy later, but for now, we will move on to communications.
So the only communications, we actually received the Mystic Air Quality Report yesterday. This is the testing that was done at Fall School that showed that all 9 locations that were tested were found to be within applicable standards, which is great. The more comprehensive test that was done, we called it the CSI test, was also found to be within applicable standards. So we are reassured that the spaces are safe. All the spaces that were tested are safe. Which was good to confirm. And so they're back to their classrooms. I had sent you an email about that, and parents were also notified of the findings. If you want to see them, they are here for you. I was not going to make books for you to read, but they are quite interesting. So they all fall within the requirements from OSHA, and the gentleman from Mystic Air, although it's a woman-owned company, the gentleman that talked to me specifically to go through the report was really, really informative and shared, the information. Hey, this might look like it's something that's a little elevated, but realize when you see elevated as 0.07, really elevated is at like 200. So 0.07 is not elevated, right? My God. So only communications. So if you want to see this, just pass them around.
Point of information, not in regard to this, in regard to the agenda.
Okay.
On the minutes, where it says approval of minutes of February 26th meeting, I'd like to have you include, that was a special meeting. Because we were postponing the meeting at the beginning of the month, and so I'd like to have that identified as a special meeting. And also under executive session, the first item there, possible approval. We don't approve anything in executive session, so I don't think that term should be there.
Could we change it to discussion of?
A personnel matter and, emergency meeting or emergency leave of staff member seems to be more appropriate. Is that okay if we change that?
I'm perfectly fine with that. Do we need a vote, do you think, to change that? Or we're okay? We'll make the
Kind of
edits.
an editorial change.
Okay.
So discussion of potential emergency leave for staff member.
Yeah.
Okay. So are we finished with communications?
Yeah, that was it.
Okay. Board of Ed Chairman's report. Nothing this month to report back to everyone. So moving on to superintendent report.
Let's get chocolate.
That's why there's no superintendent.
Did you know it's Board of Education Member Appreciation Month? It is. Thank you for your service. So I ordered these from Kate. This is thank you Board Member Appreciation Month, and you have to read the backs of them. They're actually really cute. Pass those down there. And so this is not an easy task. We know it's not an easy task, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So just for the folks in the audience, even though it says 1 2-year term, we realize that not all of you are 2-year term. Calories, substantial, value priceless, ingredients, student achievement, public education, student voice, equity leadership, community engagement, advocacy, policy, professional development, volunteer, civility, and so much more. And so, best if used by you. I love that part. So thank you for your efforts. It's not an easy task for sure. So I just wanted to say thank you. So,
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Moving along, the facility study. So I gave you a draft. I'm hoping you have a copy of it, of a flyer for the first community engagement event. We need to pick a date for the first event. I put a couple options on here. And again, this is a draft. I had adjusted, I gave you a draft of this, if you remember, and you gave me feedback for the timeline. I looked at it again, and I actually wanted to combine a couple things. And so what I ended up doing is taking and putting these things into one presentation. So the bolded items on this list for the flyer would be the items that I would be reviewing that night. The what is there, and then if they want access to the report ahead of time, it's down the bottom, and the report is still there. So this is not jazzy yet, this is not ready to send, it's just the information. I called it a community engagement event. It's up to you as far as if you want me to change the title, or if you want me to change any of the items that are on there. But basically, talking about the rationale first of why the study was done, going into the actual Fire Associates facility study report and going through it. The talk about the current BOE requests for capital improvement projects. Talk about 21st century classrooms, which is some of the information I'm going to give you tonight, and I think that's important. It's connected to it, so they understand it's part of the rationale too. District priorities, and part of that could be that we're starting to decide on those as part of this process. To discuss the town survey of options, and if people have feedback as far as what questions could be asked, that could be information you can gather. It doesn't mean you're going to send out the survey that night. And then you had mentioned the communications process for updates and information gathering. We could also solicit information that night. I would give information to say, it will be on our website. There will be a frequently asked questions. It will be sent out on a monthly basis. It'll be, in these different locations. But those are, I think we could accomplish that in one evening. And my hope would be that'd be about 2 hours.
So how about the date? March 28th, it's like in 2 weeks.
It is. It
So
is.
maybe we should pick
Another option would be to have a plan for multiple different events. We don't-
This is just number one.
I know, but this doesn't say this is just number one.
Right.
And for example, I know I'm on a business trip for 2 of those days, and if I were to see this and say, oh, no, it's the one night, there's something, and I'm gonna miss it. So if it were, the further in advance you can put some dates on the calendar, the more I can reserve those.
I was trying to stick to
3
this
months is
timeline,
not,
but it's
3
not.
months is not an unreasonable amount of time to put it on somebody's calendar to make sure it doesn't happen. So,
I agree.
I know that's there. This seems like an awful lot to cover, and there's not room for questions and answers. So I feel like as soon as you open the floodgate for questions, it's going to be huge. So one way to do this might be to call it initial presentation, and then have another date that's available for then have options for questions and conversation. I think your presentation could take 2 hours going through this, even without additional questions. And if that's the case, and all you're going to do is do the first presentation, then that's fine, but then it should be very clear that this is for presentations. On the other hand, if you want to narrow it down, you can be clear that and lay out a plan. Okay, the first one is about the need for a school and what we might do in setting priorities. Another meeting might be about going over the details of the plan. We don't want to have discussions at this meeting about the quality of the roof, right? We could easily take this and drill down into the details. If this meeting is about the need for facilities, you know, what is it that's behind the need, then we should be really explicit about the what and call it that, and then make it clear that if you want to have the discussion about the details, that'll be in meeting 3 on May 3rd, and, you know.
I would suggest that we put facilities in the title, because if I saw community engagement event, it could be about anything. So I think we want facilities or something that lets people know that we're having the discussion about what to do with our school buildings.
This would be with a letter, by the way.
Okay.
You
But I think
you can't
just
assume
to catch
people are
you,
gonna
yeah.
read the letter. If they're gonna post this in the library, that's what they're gonna say.
You could say initial community facilities engagement event.
That's a little wordy.
It's a lot, but, or participation event to let them know that they're
You could also,
involved
you
in
could
the
also
process.
phrase it like a question, where it's, what should we do about our school buildings? Okay, let's have a question. So if it's a presentation, make it clear it's a presentation. If it's a conversation, then, you know, make it clear that it's a place for us to have feedback. People want to
It
know.
does say, that this is a review of the, facilities, and these are the topics that will be covered.
Mhm.
I mean, I think it's a good idea to cover all of these topics, really, initially,
Mhm.
and put them on the table. Otherwise, people will leave the meeting and they, like the district priorities, if we leave that out, then they go home and they don't have that information. Whereas a presentation of an hour probably could cover briefly, most of these topics.
I think most of the time people want to have a chance, they have one particular issue that they want to have, one particular question they want to have answered. And a lot of the questions people are going to ask at this point, we don't have answers to yet. So I think we just need to be clear if it's presentation only. I think all of these topics have to be covered. And I think you're right. And I think if we have a way of making sure that it's documented so that people who miss it have a way of always following up
I
and
agree,
seeing that. So,
and-
yeah.
But I think a good review would at least consolidate that portion of it, because the people out there, the ones that I run across, I mean, they're off the wall. We have little information on this, and so they have something on something else, and some of it's true, some of it isn't. And you've got some people out there giving
Misinformation.
reports on our survey, which is, so I think it's a good idea, though, at least, and I agree with you, John. We should have more than one meeting, it should be a series of meetings to cover.
Could we term it, an initial starting point, review of what got us to here, so that people know that we're not answering questions at this point? We're just starting the process. So I think you're right that there is a lot of misinformation. If this is our starting off point, it's good for all of us to be there too, to review this. So having some clarification, I think, about, what got us to here would be really useful.
Will people attend multiple meetings?
Well, board members or
No,
people in the
no.
audience?
Yeah,
I think if
because
they're
if I'm just
interested,
gonna present
yes.
to you, I'll do it at board meeting.
Yeah.
But
No, I
that's-
think they will. If we can get them engaged initially, I think that's,
Which is why I think the first one you have to,
yeah,
you have to get information out there.
yeah.
Because I think if you don't, if you're too general and you're just setting the stage, they don't have time to listen to that.
Mhm.
But I would make it clear that it's a presentation,
Okay.
and then have it be clear, the next meeting will be on this date. So even if you can't lay out the entire series of meetings, maybe in the second meeting, if this is the presentation, the second meeting is review of one of these, for the people who don't make it to the first meeting, right? So a review of the options and a discussion of the options, or a discussion of the the questions we need to answer, whatever the second piece is, we need to have something that lets people know, okay, if I miss this, then on May 4th, I'll have the option to go, and that's when I can ask my questions.
You could just put something, like, if we don't have dates first in the series, or, further dates to follow, or.
I think if you're gonna do it, you need to lock down your dates.
Yeah, it's.
Because I can't, there's no way, I mean, to do multiple nights in 3 months in advance. I mean, we have to lock in dates, which is why I tried to put this on a calendar to share some of those items.
Mhm.
How about if we call it, where do we go from here?
But that makes it sound like it's a conversation.
Yeah.
If it's really a review of, what information do we have and what decisions do we need to be made?
Mhm.
Because we're not making the decision this night, right?
Yeah.
So where do we go makes it sound like, okay, we are ready.
Mhm.
So I think the overall people like it, want it, and the question is one on dates and one on follow-up.
Okay, so what would you want for your first date and what do you want me to deliver on those bullets there?
I can only do the 28th, but,
You can't do any of those April dates?
well, I can't do the 4th. Oh, look, there's one. Oh, I'm sorry, I only saw 4th.
The other piece of this is that if you attend, are you making this a special meeting? Are you part of the discussion? Are you in the audience? Are you letting me present? You need to determine that.
Could we treat it like our budget workshops? And so that they are a special meeting, so that it allows all of us to be there to get the information, but not have it be a meeting in the deliberative sense, so much as a presentation, so that, for example, we have superintendent reports and you have presentation on our agenda, it would just be, one item on the agenda.
I'll
For
do it however
posting
you want.
purposes.
I think if you are intending to chime in on this, you need to determine when you're gonna chime in and how you're gonna chime in. If you want me to facilitate this, I'm just providing information. I'm providing information about the rationale for the study, which I have. I'm providing information about what the options are and what the report says. I have the information for all of these items. Maybe district priorities is a little more you. And you're gonna weigh in on the survey options.
This isn't, I don't know, I don't see this as being your thing, I see it as being, everybody, so that's why we have to, how did management do it?
Well, this is
That's all the
procedural.
time, but, yeah.
And again, this is just a flyer, but so if you're asking me what I anticipate this looking like. I anticipate this looking like laying out the format of, here's the list of engagements, here are the dates. This is, where public to speak options will be. This is the method if you have questions, this is the method you can utilize to ask questions, knowing that you might not get a response right then and there. There would be a posted wall at every meeting. If you have a question that comes up during a meeting that you want to share with the board, that it goes on there and there's a file that's just maintained and goes through. And then all of the information, any of the sections are recorded, that all of that information is then uploaded to the website. So I think if you intend on getting into some of the dialogue, I think you have to hear all the information first and not respond to questions and just allow me to say, at this point in time, we just don't have that answer, but we will be gathering more information if it's input related. But I think that's the procedural piece to this, and that's really the intent, is here's the information. What more information do you want from that point on? And how are we gonna gather more information from townspeople? The survey, in my opinion, is gonna be a big deal. You're gonna wanna weigh in on a couple, it can only be a few questions, but what are those questions?
And I think based on the meetings that I attended before I was on the board. There was one at Center School that seemed like there was quite a crowd. And I also attended the meeting at the Town Hall in Mansfield, when there was discussion of our joining, not regionalizing, but our paying to join their school, and that room was full too, and half of it was Mansfield and half of it was Wellington. So I think there's going to be a lot of interest in people coming out, just based on my past history before I became a board member.
I think if you do the presentation, Phil, it's probably the most efficient.
Yeah.
We're talking about it's 2 hours if you go from beginning to end and talk about everything. As soon as we start breaking it up into pieces, you have a lot of variables.
Right.
So I think, especially for this first meeting, just so everybody is up to date with where we've been, because we really have a lot of history about this process too that needs to be shared, so.
I mean, I could take off district priorities and town survey of options and make that another meeting, and just do the first 4 bullets, and the last bullet, the communications process, is just part of my presentation. Here is how we anticipate gathering information from townspeople. And you could weigh in on that,
Well, if the survey's coming, then you want to talk about that so people know to anticipate it.
Well, if you do this, what are the dates I said? If you do this after your April meeting, I can provide you some written items that are connected to this around district priorities, the sample town survey, that you could then weigh in on at your board meeting in April. And then I could then present that at the meeting if you did April 22nd, because I think
I don't think we can discuss our priorities until we've seen your presentation and gone back over what the options are, if the priorities are gonna be directly related to it. Do you see the priorities as general, or do you mean priorities as, more specific?
After you see my presentation tonight, you'll
Well, so right, so that's what I'm saying, is that if it's something that we're gonna wanna discuss, then I think, setting our priorities could be an entire meeting unto itself. We wanna discuss that and deliberate about what our priorities are. I don't wanna give that short shrift.
Yeah, so let's just do the first 4. Let's set the first event as the first 4. Because I have all that information already, and you're gonna see information on 21st century classrooms tonight. I will probably use a very similar presentation, if not the same presentation. It's not long, it's 10 minutes, but it's eye-opening.
So then we should focus this first meeting on where are we now, and lay out the process for how we proceed. So it's kind of okay, what have we done, what's our rationale, what's out there? You can put up the 21st century classroom, because we'll have gotten it tonight, so it'll be good to refresh it and share that with people. And then laying out the process might be, and a discussion about district priorities will happen in this way. We're gonna do a survey, so the whole process needs to be laid out, and those documents need to be ready at this first event.
I agree.
So I think that that makes sense then to take the 5th and 6th bullets out of this presentation.
When do you see doing this survey, Phil? Do you have a timeline for that in mind?
I think people need the information first, just some background, and once they have the background, then it will be pretty immediate. It will just be the constant blast of, hey, you need to respond.
So that would be after the first meeting.
I think it could be after a couple meetings, to be honest with
okay.
you. And we might consider doing the same community engagement event, the same exact one, twice.
Yeah, I would think that would be important, because not everybody's gonna be able to come to the one meeting, and this is having the correct information, especially because we've kind of been on hiatus for more than a year. I think people are gonna wanna see this and gonna wanna know it, and they're gonna start having their own conversations.
It'll
so.
take going from that and the survey to a 3rd meeting of survey conversation data, this is what it looks like, and also small group conversations at that point in time. again, there's no facilitator, it would be me, but. So I guess let's pick the first date, and then what I'll do is I'll have Brenda email all of you and say, here's a time frame. Here's, 4 weeks later would be the second edition. And so at least we can get a few dates in there and know that, I think you need to get, if you're gonna start now, you need to get as much of this done by June 12th, the end of school. Otherwise, you're gonna have to have the same conversation again.
Vacations.
And I know that, yeah, just people are, and I'm not just speaking about school people, right?
Yeah.
If people go on vacation and,
So
So-
how about if we just start from April dates? Because March, I think it's too close, not enough time for people to make space.
Unless we were gonna do it twice. If we were gonna do the
Twice the
presentation
same?
twice, well, yeah, if we were gonna do it twice the same,
I could
maybe
do
one
4 and
day,
22.
or we can do the 28th and 22 or something. I mean, I'm just saying that the 28th isn't too soon if it is done twice, that we have an option if we miss it the first time to see it the second time.
What
I
days?
think there's benefit to having different
Days
days
of
of
the
the
week.
week.
That's what I was
Yeah.
gonna say,
Yeah.
what day of the week is the 28th?
3 are in
Thursday.
one day,
Thursday.
and one of them is a Thursday.
That's Phil's calendar, folks.
And then the 22nd is.
It's
a
Thursday,
Monday.
Thursday, Monday, Monday, are the 4 dates you've given us. So the 28th or the 24th is the
How
first.
about
is the
28,
Thursday.
22?
That sounds good.
Let me double check and see, did you check the Board of Finance schedule? Do they have any meetings on the
What was
28th?
that date again? I'm sorry.
Well,
What do you
it's
mean?
28 and 22, but you're gonna run into meetings no matter what direction you go.
Except if
March
it's Board of
20th.
Finance, that's the one
March.
that we don't want to.
22nd,
That would be,
Theirs is a.
22nd, you have me.
Uh-huh. The 23rd is the
who was the meeting on
annual
22nd?
town meeting, the 23rd.
When do we need?
March or April?
April.
Ah, sorry.
What time, her?
That usually means 7.
7.
Well, that's the, I'm thinking I walked through one of the Girl Scouts.
Yeah, we did meet once.
We need a shared calendar.
Yes, we do.
How about can we do the April 15th? It's Monday, Thursday.
That's vacation week.
Ah,
When you were saying,
How about the
doing,
29th?
when you were saying doing something twice, were you thinking 2 of these dates as twice as a possibility? Or were you thinking one now and one July 1st,
I
like
could
later in the
do it
process?
however you want. No, I think they need to have the information now before you put out a survey.
Okay, so the Board of Finance appropriation meeting is the 21st. So the 28th is an in-between date, barring snow or other bad weather.
What's the date you're looking at?
The March 28th
Yep.
and April 22nd.
They can't make April 20th. Can everybody make March 28th?
yes, I can.
Yeah, I can.
So we have 2 members that we don't know about. I think that for a meeting that's the basis for all of our work, we need to be sure that as long as we have video and audio backup.
Why don't we just schedule the March 28th for now, and then I will have Brenda schedule the second one that you can all confirm.
Okay.
I'll check with those two, obviously, but if people that are here,
Yeah.
you have.
I'm good with both days, any dates, so. they're on this.
What time?
20th.
7 PM
7 PM and location?
upstairs.
Okay.
I'll have Brenda do the rest of the schedule.
Okay.
We need a catchy title to
Yeah.
really attract people to come.
And maybe we should put a sign on the town green, so for those who just drive by.
I think we definitely will need to do a lot more marketing, and I think we need to lay out the process for all of these pieces. And if we're going to do a second one of these, absolutely. This is such a little amount of time between now and the
That's it.
22nd that unless we're going to do a second, it's not even enough time to get a sign out a week in advance. I'd like to have, a second meeting. So if all of us can make the 28th, and then you do a bonus session for something else, and we can't be at that one, then that's fine, as long as everybody from the board has seen it once.
We're gonna post it as a regular meeting,
I think it has to be a special meeting,
special meeting.
yeah, and I think we
Yeah.
should have to do it that way.
Okay, moving along. Yeah.
Yes, moving on. Next is the,
HMS Play, Alice in Wonderland. It's Friday, March 22nd, Saturday, March 23rd. We have 32 students that are working extremely hard in their final preparations for the show, so I encourage you to go. You can get the tickets at the public library or Hall School Library or at the door. They're $5 each, so they have been working very hard, so just an FYI on that. And then negotiations for the classified staff, we had one informal meeting, and the first official negotiations will start on April 1st, so that will be moving along. And that's all I have for superintendent's report.
okay. Moving on to the budget report, attachment 1.
Okay. This is gonna be highs and lows in this meeting, and I apologize. This is a low for me. I sat with Donna again and went through the numbers. And the way I see this is that our buffer of what was 20,000 is now about 10,000. And looking through this, where some money was spent, the Program 1 is basically the same, Program 2 is the same, Program 3, there was a little bit of money in special ed that needed to be spent. Same thing in health services, it was a very small amount of money that was spent there for the nurse's office. Same thing, 1 PD was approved for staff development. Utilities were paid. The biggie is system-wide support. And I think I spoke about this last time, and this is a problem that I'm keen on fixing, is that system-wide support was at 5.8%, and now it's negative 0.4%. And the reason for that is we have numerous subscriptions that have either been prepaid in prior years or paid through by grants. Some budgeted, some not budgeted, and so I feel like on every couple weeks something else comes up for renewal, and it's the first time I've seen it. And so then I had a meeting with Brenda and Donna, and they have really scoured all of what's been paid out in the past through grants, what is coming up. We've also talked to Custom Computers, because I'll give you an example of what was paid out of Program 9, where there's a negative, it was almost $9,500, $8,400 of that was a Barracuda product, which is our cloud server backup. It's a firewall, it provides updates, it's our message archiver for old emails if we need to pull old emails. It's something we have to have. Barracuda has been prepaid in the past. It wasn't this year. It's a big chunk of change. VMware, which is VM stands for virtual machines, that runs the servers, so we don't have to buy a lot of servers. We have 22 virtual machines, and that we only have 4 physical servers, one at the town office building, 2 at Hall, and 1 at Center. VMware was $1,000, but subscriptions like that it's making it challenging. We've been using the REAP grant to pay for the laptop lease. Our last laptop lease next year will be $16,000. Aerohive. See that little white box on top of the server rack over there? That's so you have wireless in this room. We just got a renewal for those for the 55 that we have. It's $4,000. It's not budget. And so I'm trying to sort all of those out, so we know there's 2 more that will total about $9,000. One is Microsoft licensing and one is semantic virus protection, which is on the actual machines that needs to be paid. So there are a number of these items that this is like pet peeve of mine that it should be identified, and it should be in districts. And if it's something that is done at both schools, it should be in district, and we need to, Custom Computers needs to help with this. They're very aware that I've talked to them about this, and it needs to be cleaned up, so that way we can budget for it, and we're not prepaying things and getting stuck, or if we prepay something, we need to know that that budget piece next year is what we'll call surplus.
I'm
The
so-
other,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
Phil, while you are talking about this moment, are they budgeted in our new budget, or we're gonna be at the same situation as we're now?
I went through all of these with Donna, and we believe they're all budgeted. But like I said, there are things that have come up that have not been, and some of the prices have changed. So when you get a new quote for something, you know, it's, some of the items renew in May, the quote from now, if I were to get a quote for now and apply it to the budget, the price could go up 20% by the time you actually do the renewal. Barracuda went up about $1,000, and I called them and said, no way. And they came down some money, but it's still an increase.
Is this the piece that you were gonna have Custom Computers give us kind of the breakdown of what we have, or is this the
This is
software side and
extra.
you were talking about the hardware side?
Yes,
Okay.
we want to know how old that server rack is right there. When should it be replaced? How old are the switches?
What's the
what
likely
condition?
life left of it? Okay, so you were
Yes.
talking hardware, and it seems like we almost need an add-on for that software and software subscriptions. So
Correct.
that we know when they're due.
And there's a lot of them, and they're required from the standpoint of you have to have security. You have to back up your items. You have to, have virtual machines, so you don't have to spend $60,000 on a server. So they all make sense, but I want them all together. I want them all clean. And what's happened in the past is, and this is not past like a year or two, it's probably going back, I would say 10 years, is that if there's been a product, and this is not on Donna, because Donna doesn't know the product, she's not using it. She just got the name of a product, but we're no longer using the antivirus software, but she still has the name. It's now gone to another product that we have, and both are listed. So it's not double up in price, it's just both names are there, and so what is that? And so we're clarifying all of those items, and so I feel better about where we are, but again, there's that particular system-wide support is probably gonna be about $12,000 overspent.
Okay.
So that 2,288,000 for February, that figure was incorrect then.
Where are you looking, sorry?
I'm looking in February. February and March. February was, the system-wide support was 208,108, and in the March report is 238,172.
That's what's expended now?
That's now for 238. But last month you said it was 208,000.
So why is that wrong? That means we've spent like $30,000 more over the month.
That's because something was already encumbered,
Mm-hmm.
and it moved from encumbered, you didn't see it because it was not in the balance remaining because it was encumbered. I guarantee it was Custom Computers. And the difference between Custom Computers and now it's gone from encumbered to expended. That is about $30,000.
Okay.
Is that what you're asking her?
Yeah. Okay.
That's probably the difference.
Yeah. Okay.
What you see encumbered now is the adjustment of,
Yeah, it's 106,000 now.
right,
Last month it was 115,000.
and so some of that money has moved across, correct.
Okay, any other additional questions on the budget report for now? Just keep us appraised if things surprise you.
Once I get
We'll keep an eye on
to
it.
committee reports, we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, well, moving on next to committee reports. We have the curriculum committee first up.
And do you want me to talk? Do you want to talk?
About the curriculum?
Curriculum? You were there for curriculum in
Yeah,
place
go
of.
go ahead, Phil.
So the curriculum committee met to review just the development process to try and do a kickoff. Kristen Stevens and Erica Bouchard, math intervention and literacy coach, basically went through a PowerPoint with the curriculum committee to talk about, here's what the work that's been done, here's the philosophy and background behind it, and they presented a very tentative timeline, and since Anne, they both kind of panicked a little bit and gone, it's very tight. I asked them to do a draft timeline simply because this is a really important task, and the timeline included presentation to the board and then approval, and then presentation to the board and approval, and it was by grade level, and it basically ran into 2021, I want to say, and so it's going to take some time to get through the approval process. The first couple times, it's going to be more of a presentation of questions because you're going to want to see it. I think the work, and you have a retired teacher sitting there, and you also had Kiara, who's a current teacher. They get it, and so they see the work that's gone into it and the amount of time, and so they're going to be meeting again at some point. The board is going to get a full presentation as far as process, what they've gone through, what's changed since your last presentation. The principals, the administrators are going to do a presentation on standards for you, and then hopefully we can start the approval process come the fall. We'll start to get some approval in the fall. And we had spaced out so that basically, and I'm not sure this is going to be feasible for those two folks because they also have their regular positions that they're doing. But it was basically, as an example, math presentation for one grade level in September meeting. October meeting would be approval for you of the math, one grade level. And then at that same meeting, you get the first presentation for ELA, English Language Arts. And then November would be approval of that grade level for ELA and the next presentation for math. And they would alternate.
That sounds incredibly intensive.
It is.
And is that the level of detail that the board is expected to go into the curriculum?
For approval, you're going to be much faster once you see it. Once you see the first couple, the timeline is not necessarily about you as it is setting a timeline for them. And so they're knowing that they have to schedule the work in because it's very easy to go work with something, and we're trying to, again, put the priority back. It's the reason that they sat in the conference room for a period of time last year just to write. And so they want that timeline, they welcome the timeline. The timeline might be tight for them, but it was more about them. Once you get the full presentation the first time of the first probably 2 units for math, you're just going to read and approve. I do believe that. Same thing for ELA. But for them, they won't need to come to each board meeting after that to do a presentation. It's just going to be, I send you the document ahead of time. For the first couple, I think it's important that you have the ability to ask questions, even though the curriculum committee will have seen the work. But it gives them a timeline for approval, as opposed to, hey, we're going to approve 3 grade levels in December. It's harder for them to set that timeline. They're just focused on 1 grade level. They can get through it and move along. Does that make sense?
Herb, you're the one person who's been on the board for the last time the curriculum committee would have done presentations. Do you remember it being a meeting per grade level? Do you remember it being that intensive that it was took all year? It seems like this is much more involved than we need to be.
Yeah, for us,
Yeah,
for us.
for
All
I
you
mean,
have
we
to do
will
is
have the
approve it.
competence.
You're
just
just
approving it, right?
You're just going to approve it. The first couple sessions are really you getting the information and understanding it, but after that, it's your rubber stamp.
But then the presentation needs to be on a presentation on the math curriculum and a different presentation on the English curriculum. It's not grade 1 English and then another separate presentation on grade 1 math.
There's
and
only,
grade-
you're only gonna get 1 or 2 presentations, because it's the same
Oh, okay.
flow all the way through.
Okay, I thought you were presenting.
No, you're not gonna get a
every
presentation
grade-
for every grade.
Okay,
No.
you had me
That would
thinking
be
here that we were gonna be here
No.
for hours and hours. Yeah, that's what it seemed like,
If
okay.
you, after the September presentation for math, if you get it, you understand what the flow of the curriculum, they're all gonna look the same, they're all consistent, you know, the layout's the same, if you get it, you won't need a presentation for math for the next grade level. You're just going to be handed that, you'll look at it on your own, and when you get to the board meeting, it'll say, approved grade 2 curriculum, math, you'll understand that.
At that point, will the curriculum be ready to post online?
Once
we
you approve it, yes.
Okay, good, that's the, yeah.
And what's the role of the committee, Mindy? So that's where I was going with this. Is
So-
this something that the committee has a chance to look at it and provide feedback? And
Absolutely.
then they recommend, so it's almost the committee recommending to the full board that they've reviewed in detail.
You will get that prior
Ahead of
to,
time.
they'll have it.
Yeah,
beforehand.
okay,
They have more meetings than
Yeah.
you will.
yeah, okay. And they have a chance to provide feedback now,
Correct.
whereas for us.
And they asked a ton of
Okay.
questions, you know,
Okay,
so.
We also tried to decide how much needed to come to the board.
right.
You know, so
Right.
we
Yeah.
streamlined it
Okay.
a little bit if it needed to be streamlined, or
Okay,
by asking our questions, they can then clarify when they come to the board. A little bit.
okay.
Part of my push to do this that way is I think it's probably some of the most critical decision-making that you have. Besides the budget, you're basically tying dollars to all of this work for curriculum and student achievement. And so you want it to be done well, and so that's why I think I'm saying some other presentations on standards and other things, so you have that information, so when you get that curriculum document, the principals talked about the standards, I see them in there. I see the flow, I can see the flow of standards, this specific math standard from kindergarten to 8th grade. I can see what it looks like at every grade level. And once you get the curriculum, that will make sense to you, and you understand.
It's also tied into professional development.
Absolutely.
So we can see how all of our professional
That's correct.
development funds have been spent.
I just want to double check to make sure I'm clear then, that we will receive enough information in the presentations at the beginning to understand the flow of the curriculum from pre-K through 8th grade. Even if the final curriculum detail isn't prepared yet, we will understand the scope of what they're going to cover.
Yes, because it's Common Core.
Right, so we'll get the whole piece at a high level
They
and then
have-
the detail month by month.
They have charts basically for a scope and sequence of what each grade level
Okay.
is supposed to look like.
Right, so we'll have the context, we can put these monthly,
Yeah.
okay, then.
And that's not a document they created, that's a document the state has created or other companies have created to say, here's what it looks like.
Okay,
So,
We're not making any changes in the curriculum. It was gone through the staff and the curriculum committee. We're just redoing it.
Herb, that would be my suggestion, trusting the professionals that have done it and trusting the committee. That's why you have a committee. You know, if they had concerns about something, they'd ask questions and. you
so
know,
who's on the committee, Kiara and Ann?
And
And-
oh,
Elena.
yeah.
I sat in as
She
an
sat in
alternate
as
for.
well.
It was
Elena.
my husband's birthday, so
Okay.
I couldn't have.
I'm on it too, but.
I was gonna say, that's what it was. I looked at you before Tracy, I'm like, it's Tracy.
No, I-
Okay.
Now, do we have any flexibility with the curriculum? Or it's just, we just have to follow Common Core blindly? Or we
It's-
do have flexibility?
They are putting the flexibility into the curriculum. So you have to still meet the standard, but how you meet the standard, that's local control. You figure out how you want to do it. And they're doing that with teacher feedback. They're doing it through the programs that they're using. One of the examples, and it's a good question, one of the examples that they used for language arts, they use Readers and Writers Workshop through, eventually I think it'll be through 8th grade, but right now it's probably more K-6. They have manuals, and the manuals are published by the publisher, the Teachers College in New York, and one unit, or what they'll call one lesson, could be days. It's worth days of information. We need to weed through those and say, where are our students at? What do we need to put in? What's important? What's not? So otherwise, the school year would be 365 days long. And so that's where you're making decisions for local control to meet the standards.
And they each came to the meeting with a stack of books this high, and they had gone through all of the books and chosen the best lessons
Yeah, it's all,
from each of these,
Best
how to
teacher
best
training.
teach the children.
All
So they've done a
research-based.
wonderful job. It's really amazing what they've done.
Teachers
Well, we got a
themselves.
copy.
Yeah, well, they're the coordinators, but they've worked with the teachers too. And they talk to the teachers now as they're teaching the lessons, so they can get more feedback from the teachers about what's working, what's not working. So it's really a work in progress, you know, it continues.
Now, will we get a copy of the curriculum or synopsis ahead of time
oh yeah,
to review?
before you
Before the
approve, you'll get it, yes. And that's the intent, is that you get the next, whatever you're gonna approve, whatever you get in October is for approval in November. And again, that's just the timeline for them, it's just to support, and that may need to be adjusted, the timeline may need to be adjusted. We're just trying to set a timeline so they know to keep plugging along.
Okay, that sounds fair. Let's move on to the policy committee.
Can we just set a date for policy committee? Is that, do you
Yeah,
want to
I
talk
think
about
that, I think
Wednesday?
that's fine. The policy committee just met, we are reviewing a number of different policies, in particular, the ones on physical restraint and seclusion of students and the use of exclusionary timeout, sexual discrimination and sexual harassment, and child abuse and neglect. So no light lifting here, right? Because of that, the committee is going to meet again to look in more detail at these before we bring them back to the full board. And we're gonna try and find a date between now and the next meeting to do that. We weren't doing the April 4th
Just
date.
wanted one before, about March 21st, before the Board of Finance.
This would work for me.
No, I'm out of town the 21st and 22nd. So I'm back the following week.
Monday, Tuesday is really tough for me.
Thursday?
Thursday, the 28th,
That will
that's the
work.
day we just set for the
Facility
for the
meeting.
facilities. If we jump into the next week, April 4th, is that Thursday?
How about the
I'm
Wednesday,
away that
27th?
week. I'm away that week in New York.
The Wednesday on March 27th?
Well, we already have the next meeting the next night on the 28th.
Two in a row.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, if could we do something on Thursday the 4th, so we can spread it out a
I'll
little?
be in New York that day.
You're in New York? Okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were saying that about the 27th.
It's never easy.
I could do
This
the
is why we need
27th.
to set dates.
Okay, you said Mondays and Tuesdays are good
Well,
for you?
April I'm flexible,
Okay.
yeah. So I can do Monday, Tuesdays on it,
What days are you in New York, that first
That
week?
week,
That whole week?
except for the first, where we have negotiations that day.
Okay,
When is negotiations, April 1st?
Yes.
okay, so I can tentatively say yes to the 27th. There's an education committee public hearing. I don't know which bills are gonna be on the agenda. I might have to cancel. So I can say tentatively,
You
that
could
we
do
can
earlier
something.
too, or, I mean, earlier in the day if you wanted, or later.
No, when I'm at the Capitol, I'm there from 9 a.m. on
March 27th?
27th, and I will know days ahead of time whether or not there's any bills,
Okay.
so.
Do you want to do it earlier that week and then, no, okay.
Yeah, no, I've got stuff.
Do you want an earlier meeting, so just get it done 5 to 6?
6 is better in case I can't get home from work.
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
Okay.
So the 27th, March 27th,
Yes.
Mhm.
6
We'll
p.m.
do an agenda for
Yep.
you. The goal is to get those policies out to you for approval at your.
At our next regular meeting
Actually, be your
in
next
April.
regular meeting in April, yeah. Which, by the way, is listed, your next regular meeting is listed on the bottom of this agenda as April 9th. Please note, it is not April 9th, it is actually April 11th. Brendan discovered that today. That is our next, remember the 9th is Board of
Finance
Finance.
public hearing.
Our next regular meeting is April 11th.
On Thursday,
Correct.
Yes.
okay.
And then the last committee on there, the wellness committee, we need to modify our wellness policy to submit to the state as part of the state's corrective action plan connected to our food services review that was done. And it's connected to the National School Lunch Program, which is why we have to do it. I already sent a draft policy to, I got some model policies, and then I sent our draft what I call the draft with the updates on them to the person that's actually going to approve them to make sure it was going to work. And so we set a meeting for, even though this is not one of your committees, I'll call this an ad hoc committee. The district has a wellness committee, and the district group will go through this wellness policy and then submit it to you. I was with Ann the day this came up and said, Ann, do you want to go to a meeting on the Friday, the March 15th at 2 p.m.? And she said, sure. So unless somebody else wants to go, that would be, it's just to go through the wellness policy and see if there's any updates to it, and really present it to the committee. And then you would get that for approval at your April meeting as well. Does anybody else want to be part of that? Check.
Okay. Moving on to new business, approval of the minutes of the February 26th, 2019 special meeting, which is attachment 2 on your agenda.
You know what, this probably should say special meeting on here as well.
I'll move that we approve the minutes of February 26, 2019 special meeting.
I second it.
Okay. We have 2 additional edits that were brought up earlier
Staff.
from Steph, even though she's not here, she's read them and emailed them in. And number 2, present to see Sarah Parcell. Parcell is spelled with 2 L's. And then we're going to add an additional description, not just the name of the retirement. So we have 2 names, but we're going to add the description of their titles so that we are clear which grades they're teaching or which subjects.
So it'll say Robin Preston Strong, Special Education at Hall School. It'll say Linda Nichols, head chef at Center School.
Right. So those would be the 2 edits to this.
Is there a signature for this, for these minutes at the end?
We have not done that, no.
I don't think I have the last page. There's no signature.
No,
The secretary didn't,
we've never done that.
I thought we did.
I haven't seen that, but we haven't signed off on any of them in the past. I know the process for making amendments is handled differently by different people. Do you have a preference? Are you okay with
No,
just?
it's fine with me, but I thought we, in some copies,
If the person making the amendment is accepting of those edits, if we could have that person make a friendly amendment, can we do it that way? Yeah, okay. So, Herb, was that your first motion and your second?
Yes.
Okay, so that's okay with you to make this?
That's
Okay. Any additional conversation, questions about the minutes? Seeing none, let's vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the special meeting from February 26, 2019, special meeting as amended with our previous 3 edits, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Next, under new business, is the presentation of 21st century learning spaces and portrait of a graduate. Bill, do you want us to lower the lights so we can see what's, see better what's on the screen?
Sure.
Oh, now there's more lights already. Ooh, too dark.
Wait,
There you go.
This one? I don't know, neither of them's good. Is that better? That's probably better than the other way around.
I'm just gonna stand back here so
Oh, okay, so you're not blocking our view?
Yeah, so you can see. Herb, you can sit there if you want to take my seat too. So I mentioned this before, that I wanted to talk to you about 21st century learning. You could talk about spaces and environment, or you could talk about skills and the portrait of a graduate. And really these 2 things align extremely well. And so this first picture here, which student will be best prepared to contribute and compete in this global economy? if you look at, and Brenda and I agree, the boy to the left actually resembles me when I was younger. Could be me. Student A, Math, Science, English, and Social Studies. What you're looking at there are just topics, and you're looking at information. And student B is talking about content mastery, communication, collaboration, and other 21st century skills. And so the idea here is that we have some skills that we also need to teach students to be successful. I need to turn this thing on. Hold on, sorry. There we go. So, here's a nice picture for you. Full comparison. What competencies will prepare students for the world of non-routine work? Look at the picture there. What's missing from the picture on the right?
People.
People. You're right. Does that mean that people are not there? No. They're doing different things. They're solving problems. They're trying to be more efficient so that the robots can create a safer car. They can create them faster. They're better, maintained. So what competencies will prepare our students where this doesn't exist anymore? This is what we look at now. And so those skills that are required for non-routine work are very, very different than what we'll call maybe 50s in that picture there. So the push, and why the push here? There's a lot of districts that are doing this, and I've been to multiple presentations on this now. And this slide is from Dr. Law, who is the superintendent in Region 8. And the intent of this slide is really to talk about that in the past you've had what we'll call hard skills. You need to know X, Y, and Z. You need to know all of the capitals of every state in the country. And they're trying to now balance that with soft skills, what they're calling soft skills. Leadership, creativity, adaptability. Because those are skills that students need, and they're underdeveloped. That's what as the result of this survey, that's what companies are seeing. They're seeing these skills where students can come out and they want them to be able to problem solve and collaborate, and it's something that is missing. And so they want the balance, a marriage of hard skills and soft skills. So that's the reason for the push. Now, this to me is one of the most impressive slides in the presentation. Is that, so why create this portrait of a graduate and why these soft skills involved? This shows the arch for each wave of innovation since 1785. If you look at the first wave lasted 60 years. And the information during that period of time, it took 60 years to have a good amount of information. If you look at the sixth wave now, how long do you think that arch is right now? What time frame? Because information is so fast now. How tight would that be?
15.
3 to 5.
Years?
Yeah.
15 years?
15.
18 months.
Wow.
So what used to be 50 years, 40 years, 30 years, now they're projecting out that information is going so fast. We're gathering so much information and we're learning so many things just because of computers and technology and what we know about science. 18 months now is how long it takes. It's incredible how quickly we're moving. This is one of the reasons why we need to adjust what we're doing. And so when you think about high task standardization versus high task variety, really the big thing that looks in here is you're looking at, this is kind of that old model, and there's nothing wrong with some of those things. Doing some things repetitively is okay. But students need to know that they need to be able to come up with unique solutions. They need non-repetitive tasks. They need to solve problems in different manners with different variables. And they need to make have some intuitive decision-making ability. Right? So they put examples there. And again, that production line worker, go back to the cars. There is no production worker there now. They're the person that's creating the machine and programming and doing a lot of different things. So it doesn't mean you're totally getting rid of the high task standardization. It just means you're shifting more towards the ability to have tasks that are, they have variety. It's not a do the same thing over and over and over. So part of the portrait of a graduate, the process here, and this is Ed Leader 21 who does a lot of this work. A lot of this is free, which is tremendous. They have a process where you're in the planning phase, and in the planning phase they really suggest that you bring in a whole host of people to be part of this process. It's not students, Board of Ed members, and parents. It's community members, it's business owners, it's elected officials, it's anyone in your town that has a stake in what do you want your students to be able to do. You know, it's talking to the owner of WIllington Pizza, saying, hey, when your employees come in, do they have the ability to make decisions on the fly and adjust? What types of things? And so as you activate your design team, they're starting to create some of the items that they see as integral. What are the skills they want students to be able to do? They create it and then they adopt it. This is going to come to life for you in a second. Part of that stakeholder questions, the process, they give you these 3 questions, and I challenge you. What are the biggest changes in society in the last 25 to 30 years? Brenda and I had a really good conversation about this today. Think about that. In the last 30 years, what's changed?
Computerizing.
Huge, right? I mean, now the amount of information, how fast we can snap our fingers. When you or I were in school, we were asked to come up with something, and Brenda had a tremendous example. We have an employee that works in this building whose father was in the computer business back when there was no computer business. He was on the forefront of this. And she had to do a report, and she turned in that report and had all this information, and the teacher gave her an F. And said, there's no way you came up with that. You copied it from a book. And she had to say, no, my dad has computers. He can do these things and gather this information. And so computers, the speed at which we know things now, you can grab your phone and say, you know, I don't know, give me an example.
Alexa, what's the square root of 42?
Absolutely, and Alexa's got it for you. So that memorization, it's your ability to take that information and we're going to deal with it. So there's drastic changes in the last 25 to 30 years. And what are those skills that students need to address those changes? So when we put them out into the world, when we send them to E.O. Smith, do they have the ability to navigate what's in front of them and make decisions? And how intentional are we in helping students develop those skills? Are those things written into the curriculum? You're going to see. This is some of the work that's being done behind the scenes to help students be able to make decisions about this. So this is an example. Sterling, as part of the portrait of a graduate, you create a graphic. And so this is Sterling's graphic, and they have their kind of, I'm going to call it a thesis statement, but it's not really a thesis statement. It's you know what they believe. It's their mantra, fostering a safe and engaging learning community. This is their graphic. And then what they do is you're supposed to put these things all throughout your building, and this is supposed to drive what you do and how you make your decisions. These are the little icons that they use. And then this is the vision of a graduate. Critical thinking, collaborative, that they're problem solving, they use their imagination, they're using technology to advance learning. This is their picture, and this is a piece of it. These are the skills they want their graduates to have when they leave Sterling. So everyone is different. Mansfield has been doing this for a few years, and Kelly Lyman, who's a superintendent in Mansfield, she's got a lot of great detail for us on this. They're in there about their 3rd year on this. This is what their graphic looks like, and they chose. I can't see that top one. I believe this is collaboration, but critical thinking, citizens of the world. That was one thing that they thought was important. Being able to do, work with all sorts of people. And these are just 2 examples of how they made them come to life. And this is what that group would be doing. That stakeholder group is identifying all of these things in collaboration. So I just gave you a couple examples of what these look like. So why are these soft skills so important? This is a representation of industry through 2010. The light blue line is the service industry. What has to happen if you work in the service industry? You have to be able to work with people. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to collaborate. You have to be able to come up with creative solutions. You notice that the industry here was going down. You notice agriculture has gone down. Agriculture, they predict, is probably going to be flat. But service industry, and to take this even further, they're predicting that in the service industry, it won't be sitting at a cubicle in a company. It will be sitting in your pajamas on the couch, working when you want to work, and doing it on a screen with other people and collaborating through a variety of locations. And so that right there shows you the importance that these are the jobs that our students going to have, and that they have to have those skills to be successful. So life conditions have changed, but has the educational system kept pace? Have we kept pace with how fast we now have information? Is this picture that different than this?
Okay, you need the computers.
Okay, she says add the computers. If you add the computers, does it mean you hit the skills? Not necessarily. So some of the things I would argue, and that they would argue for Portrait of the Graduate, is that education in general is behind as how quickly we move based upon the research that we know, the jobs that are going to be out there, and what skills students need to be successful. As we talk about curriculum, right? What's the balance here between the standards that we have to have students know and those soft skills that we need them to walk out of all school? So 21st learning spaces, now knowing what you just saw and what you just heard, the skills. This right here is what Ken Craig researched for Hall School. It costs big bucks, folks. You can't believe the cost of these desks. But if you look at that, you've got collaboration, you've got the technology, they're all facing each other. This same desk setup is in a line right here because that's how they can be set up. Here, it's actually in a semicircle. The object here is that you're putting students in different situations during class, and they're driving some of this instruction. Here, you might have a presenter that's a student, because they're standing in that semicircle, and there's 3 others giving you feedback about public speaking, whatever it is. This one here is just bright, it's just tables, but what does the environment look like? This one here is one of my favorites, the last one's going to blow your mind, but there's the computer, Elena, right? You've got the alternative seating, looks very different. You've got, they're working as groups, but they have their own individual computer. They still have a leader. They've got multiple resources, technology on the walls. These 21st century learning spaces match that vision of what should be in Portrait of a Graduate, what those soft skills look like. And there's the last one. That doesn't look like a classroom that was there just a short period of time ago, 30 years, 20 years, 10 years. Can you see creativity in this classroom? There's nobody there. Can you see it? Can you see the communication setup in that classroom? These are standing desks, by the way. And there's sitting, you can sit right here too. That one's awesome, I just love that one. Can you see the collaboration in that? Critical thinking is probably a little bit harder to see in that, but you can see the setup of what Portrait of a Graduate and the vision of where, this is where I'm trying to go. This is where the things that I want to see in curriculum. These are the types of things that I want to see in staff be able to provide and set up their classroom in very unique ways, because you're establishing the environment for those types of things to take place, the communication. And you remember when you went on your tour that we have some alternate seating in classrooms, that some of these things are going on in some of our classrooms now. And it doesn't mean if you didn't see that it's bad. I don't want you to think that. But the idea is that how we're teaching our students, really we need to be driving what they call the 4 C's. I would argue there's more than that. That's just a framework that foresees the creativity, communication, collaboration, critical thinking. And you could identify those are the skills, but again, you can tie it back to Portrait of a Graduate, and you can tie it back to the environment. So it's a simple presentation, but I think it's eye-opening from the standpoint of this is how you set yourself apart. This is where we should be going for our students, and try and start to identify some ways to get there. Questions about any of this?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I do not like this room at all.
It's uncomfortable, isn't it?
It's the chairs, because children spend a lot of time in the classrooms. They need to have comfortable chairs with back supports. I don't see anything there. It's couple healthy chairs. That's my problem.
I will tell you that if I put a standing desk in a lot of classrooms, they would rather stand all day than sit on a chair.
Standing
Right
is
now.
okay, but sitting, sitting options are not
This right here,
children
those right there,
friendly.
that's promoting core strength. There's no seat back.
Yeah, it means their back is gonna be crooked.
Oh,
No, it's the other way
I
around.
would say
It
the other
floats
way
the
around.
muscles, that's why
Yeah,
they
but
have.
for how long they're gonna sit
Well,
like this? In
I
6
think
minutes, they're gonna be.
I think
Right.
one of the things that's interesting about this type of thing is that you don't see it in action. So you might sit at any one of those desks for 25 minutes and
Sure.
then move to a different task. So you're not gonna stay in the same chair all day. So
Correct.
you're gonna stand up for 45 minutes and then maybe you're gonna move to a different section for another 25 on a different type of chair. So there's more of a flow that you don't get from this.
Right.
From this view. So if anything, it keeps their bodies moving in a way that they don't have now because they're sitting still. Am I correct in
Yeah.
interpreting this?
And there could be tables over here that we don't see that are for just group work with regular chairs. That could be the case. I looked at this for quite a while. What do you suppose this is right here? I'll tell you what I thought it was. What do you see?
Bench.
You see a bench. Anybody
Are they
else?
steps
Couch.
like those?
I see a stage.
Steve?
I see a person standing right here and presenting to a class. I see public speaking. I don't know. I don't know if that's what that is, but that's the point of, we have to be thoughtful about, it costs big bucks to do some things like this, but we have to be thoughtful about how we do some of these things.
But it doesn't have to cost big bucks. I volunteer in a fourth grade in Mansfield that looks like that. And most of the furniture came from the Yukon building.
That's where we're getting
Yeah.
some of this,
Yeah, so
the balance.
and the kids get to choose what's comfortable for them. There's kids that lie on the wall, the windows, and there's like a shelf with the books under them. Some kids lie there during their independent reading.
Yeah, some
Because that's where
students
you're
would rather lay on the floor than
Yeah.
sit in any of these chairs.
Mhm.
So, and again, it's not just about furniture, it's about the setup of these things, and I don't want it to just seem like it's about furniture. It's really about putting our students in a position to be successful, creating a vision for the district that I will tell you, Sterling, I thought, did an outstanding job. Even though this doesn't take all of it, what you see into account, their district improvement plan is directly underneath this. And it's all aligned, it was beautifully done. And so that's kind of a model that I'm looking at, and EastCon actually helped create theirs. But there's enough people now that have done this, that the administrators and I are starting to take this task on. But it's got to go beyond us. It's got to, there's got to be board input. There's got to be really specifically around identifying, hey, what do we really want as our soft skills? What do we want as the core for our students? And so I think it's important for you to see the balance. And Elena, I'm glad it makes you uncomfortable, because that's what change is uncomfortable. This right here probably would make some teachers uncomfortable. It really would, because it's a loss of control. That's not easy. It really is not easy. But what you have to get to is the why. Why is this so important? And once you get past that why, you're going to set up an environment for your students that is going to work for them. And this might not work for all students. You have to have some balance.
And it might not work for all teachers without a lot of additional professional development and preparation time
Absolutely.
to be able to teach this way. Any radical change isn't just about changing the furniture. But part of the reason we've been focusing on professional development is because that's the major driver of quality in the classroom. And you can't, just like we couldn't make everyone use the iPads for instruction all the time,
Yeah.
there are going to be first adopters, there are going to be people who are already kind of doing this and regrouping their tables in ways that would be really thrilled to have furniture better adopted to the way they're working. But there are going to be other people who would need to do this more gradually. So I think there's, the fact that maybe not all of UConn's furniture is available right away would be a good step.
When you implement this, you're going to implement it in the early years, so that they're adapted, or you're going to just do it in the 7th and 8th grade?
I think when you make a decision about where you go with a building, that's the time to implement. If you decide to stay where you are, I would still say K-8. Specifically, I mean, every kid, I think all kids like to move and talk, but middle school kids like to talk, middle school students like to talk. They want to convert. And if you let them do that and you listen to the conversations, you're blown away by what they come up with. As long as there's parameters set up to say, hey, you got to stay on topic. You can't be talking about what you're doing Friday night. But that's the teacher's job. They set that up. But this could be a middle school room.
Right, this isn't what a kindergarten classroom would look like.
Could be.
It could be, but it would probably have more group areas and more space for play. And this does not promote play, and play is developmentally appropriate.
That's
for
like
younger
what's
grades.
on the other
This
side
is-
of this line? Is
Right,
there
right.
a play over there?
So,
Correct.
Right.
Correct. For sure. This could be your library. You're promoting collaboration around books. I guess the sense, though, is that you got to get to this. The point is set up the environment so that students can be creative. Think about what you saw in the makerspace. That students have the opportunity to communicate their ideas. It's what math talks are all about.
So what does it take to become a facilitator more than
I think there's always got to be a balance, because I don't ever see the human being going away. I really don't. I think there's some people that do. I don't. I don't think the piece of technology will ever take over the human interaction and the adaptability that a good teacher has. And so they might facilitate some of that work, and some of the workshop model is set up that way, which is what we're adopting. When you do the workshop model, there's independent work time, but there's accountability to it. And so, and how you provide feedback, and how often you get feedback. And does the accountability only have to come from the classroom teacher? That right there, hey, I see someone standing at the red table. Can you please go over, somebody give some feedback, they need some thoughts on the idea. And the next thing you know, you have two students talking about something that they were working on and how they can solve a problem. Boy, what an important skill these days, right? How to solve problems appropriately. So I would say it's still a balance. I'm not on the side of the humans going away. Any other thoughts about any of the other slides? I thought it was important to share with you.
Yeah, I just think that the center of all the teaching is still a good teacher.
I don't
So
disagree at all.
we could have like golden furniture, but if the teacher is not with the right heart, then kids gonna lose it.
And I think that's also the brain science shows that children learn when they're engaged and they're in a relationship. So this would allow for greater relationship peer-to-peer than we currently have. I think the relationship with the teacher does exist now, not as much because they only get, so much face time, but this might allow for greater peer interaction, which I think at the middle school model would be a great improvement.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's all over the place.
Yeah.
Even math talks at the elementary level, where students now know how to respond to something where they don't think Tracy's right. I don't agree with Tracy, and this is why. They're learning to say those things, and I mean, and you see it in action. So, I mean, that's an important skill that they're learning, and so kids are pretty incredible when you put them in situations to be successful with a positive, really strong teacher. To your point, I agree 100%. Where they have a good connection with their students and where they can facilitate these things.
I really liked those picture before when you had those circle tables, desks, that's, I think that's really good.
Yeah, again, there's no, I think when you go back to this, there might be a wrong answer now if you saw this all the time, right? If you see that all the time, but occasionally that might be the right answer. But how are we promoting conversation if students are sitting next to each other? Does this promote conversation, sitting this way, side by side? Does this promote conversation? Those are things that you have to be thoughtful about, and that's where you see some of those changes. So, just
One of the things about this is it's student-centered.
100%.
Really, rather than information being filled out by the teacher, this way it gives them learning from each other, really, to some extent.
Absolutely. So this is the type of thing I think is important for the public to see too, as far as, you know, where's the board going, where am I trying to move you to, or, you know, this is, you want to know my vision. It's not about furniture, it's about the skills that our students need to walk out with and their ability to problem solve. If I don't know how to do a problem, what am I going to do about it? Am I just going to hand it to the teacher and walk away, or am I going to say, hey, I need some help with this? It's communication, having that ability to ask for help. It's asking a friend, hey, can you, this is how far I got. Did you get any further this? How do we solve this problem together? So there's just a lot of things that I think are really positive about it. And I like their process. I think it would engage the community, and this really could go hand in hand with, you know, hey, whatever decision you make regarding the buildings, this should move forward. So. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was interesting point here.
I'm glad you think so. That's the goal.
Our next item on the agenda are our board goals, and Phil handed out a draft of the goals that we prepared for this current year last October.
Oh, sorry, I gave you the, this handout too. So you have this framework for 21st century learning. It just gives you a sense of, it's connected to what that presentation was, just so you have it to look at later. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So board goals.
You want to go?
Yeah.
Okay, so your feedback about the board goals, even though it's March, one of the items I think, Michelle, you had talked about was, you know, this is more my goals, and in doing a ton of research and looking at other board goals, Summers, Killingly, Collins, their goals look exactly the same as these. You know, ensure, number one for Killingly was ensure graduates are college and career ready. That's pretty broad. Number three for them was engage the community in a 5-year strategic planning process. Continue to improve school climate in each building. Those are just broad goals, and you know, it's the superintendent's role to really expand upon those and create some of those specific objectives for how you achieve those things. Some people just focus on, hey, let's you know, make sure that Collins, one of them was to engage the superintendent to explore and research shared service opportunities. That's one of their goals. And so, knowing that you needed 2 brand new administrators, I kind of felt like number one was very appropriate. The second one, as far as, you know, a comprehensive long-term plan for the efficient, effective use of school building facilities is what you're moving towards, will be in process. And then the curriculum is something that we just talked about again tonight. So you could go beyond this if there's something that you wanted to go beyond. But just looking at, you know, the other goals that I looked at, you know, there was no one district where I went, that's it. They all look pretty similar in their own ways. Even, you know, Region 8 was improving external communication, one was improving internal communication, and their goal was around budget. So
I think that in terms of goals, one of the ways we've traditionally done them is having a summer retreat, a board retreat, for us to talk very broadly about what we want to accomplish in the year or two ahead.
Yep.
I think we've never tied that to the cycle of different terms. And I think that one of the things that's always been challenging is if we were this summer to set the goals for next year, and then there's the chance of turnover of 3 or 4 of the members on the board every other November. So it almost always seemed to me that board goals should be something we might do together at the start of a 2-year term, as opposed to, because these are board goals, these aren't your goals. So what we want to accomplish as a board together should happen once we sit together with this. So it might make sense if we were to move to that kind of timing to add maybe one more on here to make sure that we have enough to keep us through the end of this cycle, which is November. But it does seem like we're going to be doing a lot of curriculum stuff through the fall, and that's already underway. That the use of the building facilities, while we're going to be having those conversations this spring, if we decide to move ahead with a building committee, there's still a lot of work that's going to go on with that as well. So it might be interesting and helpful if you share some of those, some of the goals for us to, at next month, or, you know, if you have some other suggestions of some other way, if you think it would be helpful for us to identify one additional area for those of us, I don't know if anybody's rolling off the board or not, but if there's, to give people a chance that there's any one more initiative that we wanted to, you know, give some attention to between now and November. What do you think of that in terms of process?
You want another goal?
Yeah, I think I want to give you an option to consider
Community
another goal.
relations.
What?
Community relations.
Community relations?
That's a good goal.
And that certainly ties into the curriculum and the facilities plan. So maybe communications with the community. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We'd have to be a little bit more specific other than just, you know, improve community relations. We'd have to be.
Oh, we
How
can
do
put
we
a
measure
lot in
that?
there. We can put a lot in there.
I know, that's why I'm saying we should be a little more specific
Oh, yes.
about the, you know, do we mean specifically about, you know, initiatives that the school is undertaking? Are we talking more generally about the curriculum and the curriculum process? Are we talking about success on our testing? You know, is there, so there's a lot of different pieces of that. I'd want to give, you know, a little bit more direction if people think.
So do you want to talk about it now or in the future?
No, in the future, because it is already 20 of 9, but I just want to plant that seed. We could.
It's
but-
not on the agenda. but-
Well, it's on here for a discussion, old business for board goals, so it is on the agenda. It's just, I think we still have to go into executive session tonight, and I think I want to plant the seed to keep that on
Well, I
as
think
old
it's
business for
important,
next month.
communicating with the public is important.
Mhm.
It should be 2 ways. In other words, we should be communicating with parents, with the public,
Mhm.
and they should be communicating with us. And there are a lot of topics that we could cover, and you just mentioned one of them, which is the curriculum.
Mhm.
And also what Phil presented today might be something that we could present to the public as well. Things of that nature, so that they're aware of what is, you know, going on in the school and what we are doing. And it develops kind of a partnership where, you know, like we have good relationship with the finance and with the select, you know, things of that nature. I mean, all kinds of things in communication you can do. I mean, I can go on for an hour on this if you like.
I think I'd move to table before you got an hour into it.
Okay, that was
But
what I had
Yeah,
in
yeah,
mind.
I think that it's definitely something that we want to give additional thought to.
Something we develop.
Phil, could you send out your brief summary from some of the other schools? I'm just thinking that for people who are not here to be able to contribute to that conversation next month,
Yeah.
it might be helpful to kind of jog their memory.
Part
The other
of-
thing we could tie in here is continuing to develop our webpage.
Well, that's a part of the communications.
Yeah.
Communications, yeah.
Great.
That's ongoing.
What I would say is that the thing that's not in here is that you need a 5-year plan that is as of today, which community relations is a part of your 5-year plan, which is also a website, which is also curriculum,
Yeah.
which, I mean, there's a lot of things that.
Well, we have had a 5-year plan, but I can't remember when,
Yeah.
but 5 years ago.
I think I said that for a reason.
Maybe we could work on that after the election. in
That might
November, so
make more sense
when we get a
to
new
start
board
on the
on.
process. Let's get a sense of what that is next month though. So is that okay if we table that till next month? Okay, present to speak, those of you who've sat through our meeting, if there's anything you'd like to contribute. Mr. Belair, please also give us your
Randy
address.
Belair, Village Hill Road. I really like her suggestion, the building community relations, and it seems to me you have a natural opportunity on Wellington Day to set up a tent maybe and have meet the superintendent, meet the BOE members, and just show your faces and have a chance to engage with the citizens. Because it sounds to me like later this month or next month, when you start talking about the future of the schools, facilities, there's going to be people who would like to have a chance to talk to you all. And I think it could be a great exchange of information on a real way from Wellington citizens. If you attended last year, it was huge. I was in the Democratic tent all day, and it helped me a lot understand what issues are on the top of mind for people. So why not take advantage of that natural opportunity? I don't know if you've ever done that before. Has BOE had a tent before?
Not that I know of.
It makes you visible too. You know, it starts, people will connect with you. And it feels natural.
You done?
Yes.
Okay. Judy?
Judy Reed, 19 Birchman Lane. Thank you very much for all the work you do. This is very exciting to sit here and listen to. I very much resonate with the 21st century 4Cs. We've been teaching that at the martial arts school that I go to for 4 years now. It didn't require a facilities change. So it can be done if you don't make the facilities change. It can be done with what you have. It just requires you to be more creative and use more critical thinking. So don't let that be a stumbling block. And I just want to encourage you to keep the momentum that you have tonight. I would hate to see that, there's elections in November, put the brakes on. It doesn't matter who's sitting in the seat, this work needs to go forward. We saw a big halting and slamming on the brakes because we had an interim superintendent, and because then we had to do hiring, and the facilities just was put on a shelf. I really wouldn't want to see that happen again because we're looking at elections in November. You have our full support, and I know I've talked to other members in the community that have that same concern, that, we want you all here, please stay, but we aren't in control of that, and we just don't want you to lose momentum. We'll support you.
Mike Choi, teacher at Hall Memorial School. My one thing is I want to thank the board for all the work that they put into the budget season this year, all the meetings and the conversations that they had. I was not able to attend many of the meetings, but I heard from a lot of the other teachers of the conversations that went through. That process is not easy. It's never easy, and we thank you for that time from the teachers and from town members, and it's a very important process, so thank you guys for that.
Okay. And seeing no other members of the audience to speak unless, okay. No, I think we're good then. I will move to board comments, which is next. Ann, why don't you start and we'll go around.
I think I'm gonna pass.
Okay.
I think I'm going to pass.
Okay, everybody's still hungover from daylight savings time. Herb?
Well, thank you, Superintendent. You reiterate what has been said about the budget that everyone's worked hard on. It's not over yet, really, so in the process. You really do not have a final board budget. So it's kind of open-ended as far as what we want to say. But we've already said quite a bit about this. The other thing I want to mention is the presentation tonight was very enlightening, very informative. In teaching, I think there are all kinds of ways of doing it. And this looks like it's kind of a forward looking. I don't know if it's a new concept completely. It's already, every 10 years, everything seems to come up
With a new name.
But I think this is I think in some school districts, something like this is could be, and it's heard well, the students would benefit from it. In other school districts, I don't know how successful it would be. Unless you have the staff and the administration and board that was behind it 100%. But this is something I guess we have to look forward to do down the road. You've planted the seed.
That's the point.
Fair enough. Tracy?
Thank you for the presentation about 21st century learning, and I think that we are entering an exciting process with the facility studies and moving forward with making some decisions with our community, for our community. And I think it will be, I think we can all learn a lot from it, but also going to be a way of bringing us all together.
Thank you. I think that I will just reiterate Herb's comments that I know that there are numerous Board of Finance meetings over the course of the next 2 weeks. And I will not be able to attend those because I'm out of town on a business meeting, and I greatly regret that, but is not to be avoided. So I'll come back and you'll have to be live tweeting from the hearings to let me know what's happening. And also then to congratulate the HMS folks as they prepare for the play, Alice in Wonderland, and hope that other board members will be able to attend those and wear our new little Board of Education information badges so that people can recognize us as Board of Education members. We have new name tags as a start. So, and I think that we should definitely consider ways that we can be more available to the community, not only putting Phil out there, but ourselves as well to answer those questions. And I'm excited about the process to look forward towards the facilities. So, okay, with that in place, I would like a motion to move to executive session and invite the superintendent after a 5-minute adjournment. Is that okay? Okay, and is there a second?
What's the motion?
To move into executive session of the board and invite the superintendent to join us to address a personnel matter and the superintendent evaluation.
Okay. I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Okay, passes unanimously. We're going to take a quick 5-minute adjournment for necessary breaks, and I will stop the recorder. Okay.